Hi, my name is Dontavia Bryant, and the topic that I chose to research for my criminology PowerPoint is terrorism. The United States defines terrorism as the calculated use or threat of violence to inculcate fear intended to coerce or intimidate governments or society. For a long time, the United States has been haunted by the attacks that took place on September the 11th in 2001, when the hijacking of 4 United States airliners were crashed into selected targets, including the Twin Towers in the United States, the attempted attack of the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and a airliner that was found crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. These attacks were coordinated by a group of Islamic terrorists and caused the deaths of nearly 3,000 people. As a result of the attacks on 9/11, several businesses and organizations began to implement organizational crisis plans to help prepare their businesses for the possibility of another attack, or to have individuals to be up to speed on what should be done in the event that an attack does take place. I found a survey that was conducted on various businesses and organizations, and it gives an example of how they have implemented plans of communication in the time of crisis over a period of time following the 9/11 attacks. The following tables are the results of the surveys that were conducted in regards to the implementation of disaster plans in response to terroristic attacks. As you can see in Figure 1, the table shows an increased focus on disaster planning 5 years following the attacks on 9/11. In Figure 2, there is a reevaluation or creation of emergency employee communication plans, or in other words, it shows how various organizations began to look at the plans that they may have already had in place or created new emergency plans for employees and communication plans as well. Finally, in Figure 3, you see how the importance of technology was evaluated in the survey and how organizations began to view the importance of technology 5 years following the attacks on 9/11. Almost 1 month after the September 11 attack on the United States, the Bush administration established or expedited an Office of Homeland Security. The Office of Homeland Security is a cabinet department of the United States federal government that was expedited in response to the attacks that took place on September the 11th. The Office of Homeland Security works to protect the United States within and outside of its borders, whereas other departments of security work to protect the United States abroad or outside of the borders of the United States. The goal of the Department or Office of Homeland Security is to prepare for, prevent, and respond to domestic emergencies, particularly terrorism. The following table addresses how the evolution of law enforcement's information sharing networks and intelligence function has changed pre and post 9/11. I won't review the whole chart, but I did want to focus on the focus of intelligence that has been implemented since the attacks that took place on 9/11. Prior to the attacks on 9/11, the intelligence functions included the monitoring of criminal intelligence such as gangs, organized crime, narcotics, and white-collar crimes. Post 9/11, about 1 to 3 years after, the intelligence is evolved to include a focus on terroristic threats. Even further down the line, 7 to 9 years following the attacks that took place on September the 11th, the intelligence's functions included the adapting of all crimes, all hazardous approaches to intelligence and regionalization trends. In response to terrorism, the United States was called to implement some new programs and strategies to help improve the cohesiveness or the level of communication that was taking place across the systems here in the United States. Not only did it do that, it also called for the improvement of some of the strategies that we already had in place, such as the Secure Communities Program, which was established in 2008 and allowed for local law enforcement agencies to check the immigration status of every person booked in county or local jails. Even if the person was not ultimately convicted of a crime, the law enforcement agencies were still able to compare their fingerprints against federal immigration records. And what happened was it began to spur the cases of numerous undocumented immigrants that were entering deportation proceedings after they had been stopped for minor infractions. I feel that this is important because following 9/11, what happened was it established a partnership between every single law enforcement jurisdiction in the nation, so that they were all able to communicate and share information back and forth regarding these people that were being arrested, particularly illegal immigrants that could be threatening to the United States. While what took place on 9/11 is difficult to think about, and terrorism is something that is not spoken of a lot in the homes of many Americans, it is something that should be still taken into consideration. Recently, there has been the development of a new terroristic group called ISIS, or the Islamic State of Iraq. And what ISIS wants to do is to overthrow the existing governments of unstable and Muslim-dominated nations to establish their own state. According to the governor of Texas, Mr. Perry, there is still a high possibility that the United States may be vulnerable to terroristic attack due to recent activities by ISIS that has raised awareness all over the world. In an article written by Mr. Mike Lillis, Perry stated that the obvious great concern was because of the condition of the border from the standpoint of its not being secure and us not knowing who is penetrating across, that individuals from ISIS or other terrorist states could be crossing. Perry said there are very real possibilities that they may have already used this strategy. In closing, I would like to say that our awareness of the policies and procedures that have been implemented in our country is vital to our survival and safety in the event that there is another terroristic attack. Terrorists are a great threat around the world, and we should err on the side of caution when approaching this issue. Thank you for taking the time to look through my presentation, and I hope that many of you will take a little extra time out to research the effects that terrorism has not only had on the United States, but the possible threat that terrorism still can pose to the United States and other countries around the world. What are the policies that are implemented in your state? What are the plans that have been made in the event that a terroristic attack takes place? These are things that we as Americans need to know to not only keep ourselves safe, but to keep our families safe, our communities safe, and most importantly, to keep our country safe. Thank you.